I walked into my brother's engagement party expecting celebration, but instead heard his fiancée whisper to her friend with a cruel sneer. Once I marry him, that pathetic sister of his will finally learn her place. She thinks she owns this family business, but I already have plans to push her out completely. The champagne glass slipped from my trembling fingers as 23 years of loving my brother Derek suddenly felt like the biggest joke of my life. Before we dive into how this family betrayal unfolded and the sweet revenge that followed, tell me where you are watching from. Hit that like button if you have ever felt betrayed by family, and make sure to subscribe because this story gets absolutely wild. Trust me, you will want to see how karma comes for people who underestimate the quiet ones. My name is Scarlett, and until that moment at the Riverside Country Club, I believed family meant everything. Derek and I had built our marketing consultancy from nothing after our parents died in a car accident when I was 21 and he was 25. We promised each other we would always have each other's backs, that blood was thicker than any business deal or romantic relationship. Standing there in my emerald cocktail dress, watching Vivian laugh with her sorority sisters while discussing my professional demise, I felt something inside me shift permanently. Vivian Rodriguez had entered our lives 6 months earlier like a hurricane of blonde ambition and designer perfection. Derek was absolutely smitten from their first coffee date, constantly gushing about her marketing degree from Northwestern and her brilliant strategic mind. I had tried so hard to like her. When Derek brought her to family dinners, I complimented her outfits and asked about her previous job at a boutique PR firm in Chicago. When she suggested improvements to our company's social media strategy, I listened politely, even though her ideas seemed superficial and trend-focused rather than results-driven. When Derek announced their engagement after only 4 months of dating, I swallowed my concerns and helped plan this very party. But hearing her describe me as pathetic, while outlining her plan to systematically remove me from the business Derek and I had built together, changed everything. I grabbed another champagne flute from a passing waiter and moved closer to their conversation, pretending to admire the elaborate floral arrangements while my heart hammered against my ribs. The brother is so easy to manipulate, Vivian continued, her voice dripping with condescension. He actually thinks I fell for him because of his charm. Please. I researched their company for months before orchestrating our meeting at that networking event. Their client list is worth millions, and once I have legal access through marriage, pushing out his precious little sister will be simple. Her friend Madison giggled approvingly. You are absolutely diabolical, Viv. What is your timeline? 6 months after the wedding, maybe less. I will convince Derek that Scarlett is holding back the company's growth with her conservative approach. I already have a folder of potential replacements, all people who will defer to my vision. Derek trusts my judgment completely now, especially when it comes to business decisions. My stomach churned as puzzle pieces clicked into place. Over the past month, Vivian had been attending our company meetings as Derek's fiancée, supposedly just observing to better understand our work. She always sat quietly in the corner with her leather portfolio, taking notes and asking thoughtful questions about our processes and client relationships. I had assumed she was genuinely interested in supporting Derek's career. Now I realized she had been conducting corporate espionage, gathering intelligence for her hostile takeover disguised as helpful curiosity. Every client meeting she had observed, every strategy session she had witnessed, every financial document Derek had carelessly left on his desk when she visited the office. It all fed into her master plan. What about the clients? Madison asked. Will not they notice when she disappears? Vivian's laugh was sharp and calculating. That is the beauty of it. Scarlett is too nice, too trusting. She has built all these personal relationships with clients based on her reputation for integrity and results. But business is business. When I present them with more aggressive growth strategies and lower rates through restructuring, they will follow the money. Nobody stays loyal to individuals when corporations offer better deals. The champagne turned bitter in my mouth as I processed the full scope of her plan. This was not just about removing me from the company Derek and I had built together. She intended to dismantle everything we had created, replacing our relationship-based approach with a cold, profit-driven machine that would destroy the trust we had spent years cultivating with our clients. I thought about Mrs. Patterson, our first client who took a chance on two grieving siblings with more determination than experience. I remembered staying up until 3 in the morning with Derek perfecting presentations for companies that barely knew our names. We had sacrificed relationships, social lives, and financial security to build something meaningful together. And Vivian wanted to strip mine it for parts like a corporate vulture. Moving away from their conversation before my expression betrayed my eavesdropping, I found myself in the country club's marble bathroom staring at my reflection under the harsh vanity lighting. My green eyes looked hollow, and my usually confident posture had crumpled into something defeated and small. But as I watched myself in that mirror, something else emerged beneath the hurt and betrayal. Anger. Pure focused rage at being underestimated and dismissed as weak. Vivian had made a critical error in her research. She had confused kindness with stupidity, assuming that someone who chose collaboration over competition would be easy to destroy. She had no idea that quiet people often see and hear everything that we observe and remember details that louder personalities miss. She definitely did not know that Derek and I had built our business on contingency plans and protective measures after losing our parents taught us how quickly everything could disappear. Returning to the party with a composed smile, I spent the next hour playing the role of supportive future sister-in-law while mentally cataloging every detail of Vivian's behavior. She introduced me to her friends as Derek's sweet little sister who helps out at the office. Her tone dripping with condescension. She steered conversations away whenever someone asked about my role in the company, instead directing attention to her own exciting plans for expanding the business. When Derek found me near the end of the evening, his face glowing with happiness and champagne, I hugged him tightly and told him how proud I was of his engagement. He had no idea that his fiancée had just declared war on everything we had built together. But as I drove home through the quiet suburban streets, my mind was already working. Vivian thought she was playing chess while I played checkers. She was about to discover that underestimating your opponent is the fastest way to lose the game entirely. The Monday morning after the engagement party, I arrived at our office building 30 minutes earlier than usual, my mind sharp despite barely sleeping. Our company occupied the entire third floor of a converted warehouse in the Arts District with exposed brick walls and floor-to-ceiling windows that Derek and I had chosen specifically because the space felt creative and collaborative rather than corporate and sterile. I made coffee in our small kitchen and settled at my desk with a yellow legal pad writing down everything I remembered from Vivian's conversation. Her timeline, her methods, her assumptions about our business model, and most importantly, her complete underestimation of my capabilities and Derek's loyalty to our partnership. My computer chimed with an email from Derek sent at 6:30 in the morning with the subject line, "Coffee meeting today." He wanted to discuss some exciting ideas Vivian has for streamlining our operations, and asked if I could join them at 9:30 at the cafe downstairs. The speed of her manipulation was breathtaking. She was already implementing her plan less than 48 hours after I had overheard her strategy. Instead of panic, I felt a cold clarity settle over me. If Vivian wanted to play corporate games, she had chosen the wrong opponent. What she did not know was that I had minored in business psychology during college specifically because I wanted to understand how to read people and predict their behavior in professional settings. Our parents' sudden death had taught me that preparation and vigilance were the only defenses against life's unexpected attacks. I spent the next hour before their arrival accessing our company's digital security systems, something Derek had always left entirely to me since technology made him nervous. Every email, every document, every client communication was automatically backed up to 3 separate cloud servers that only I controlled. Our client contracts included specific clauses about ownership of work product and methods that I had insisted on including after reading about corporate takeovers in business school. More importantly, our partnership agreement, which Derek had signed without reading carefully because he trusted me completely, included provisions that made it legally impossible for either of us to make major business decisions without the other's explicit written consent. Vivian could manipulate Derek's emotions all she wanted, but she could not touch our legal foundation without my signature. At 9:20, I watched from our conference room window as Derek and Vivian approached the building. She was dressed in a sharp black blazer and pencil skirt, carrying the same leather portfolio she had brought to our meetings. Her body language was confident and predatory, like a shark that had smelled blood in the water. Derek looked unusually serious, his normally relaxed demeanor replaced by the focused expression he wore when preparing for difficult client presentations. Vivian had clearly spent their morning convincing him that major changes were necessary for our company's survival. When they entered our office, I greeted them with the same warm smile I had worn at the engagement party. "Good morning. I brought pastries from that bakery you love, Derek. And Vivian, I got those lavender scones you mentioned liking." Vivian's eyes flickered with surprise at my thoughtfulness, but she quickly composed herself. "How sweet of you, Scarlett. Derek has been telling me how much he values your attention to details like that." The subtle condescension in her tone, treating my gestures as insignificant domestic tasks rather than professional courtesies, confirmed everything I needed to know about her true opinion of my capabilities. Derek launched into an enthusiastic presentation of Vivian's revolutionary ideas for restructuring our business model. She wanted to eliminate our current approach of building long-term relationships with smaller clients in favor of pursuing larger contracts with major corporations. Her plan involved hiring aggressive salespeople, cutting our current service offerings, and focusing exclusively on high-volume, low-touch marketing campaigns. The profit margins would be incredible. Derek explained, his eyes bright with excitement. Vivian calculated that we could triple our revenue within 18 months by targeting Fortune 500 companies instead of small businesses. I listened carefully, asking thoughtful questions about implementation timelines and resource allocation, while internally cataloging every flaw in her strategy. Vivian's plan ignored the economic reality that large corporations already had established relationships with major marketing firms and would never trust a small, unproven company with their multi-million-dollar campaigns. More telling was her fundamental misunderstanding of our current client base. She assumed our smaller clients were less profitable because she was measuring only immediate revenue rather than lifetime value and referral networks. Our approach of building genuine relationships had created a web of interconnected businesses that referred new clients to us regularly, generating sustainable growth without expensive sales and marketing costs. "What about our existing clients?" I asked innocently. "Mrs. Patterson's restaurant chain has been with us for 3 years, and the Henderson family's retail stores just signed a 2-year extension." Vivian's smile was sharp and dismissive. "Those relationships are sweet, but they are not scalable. We need to think bigger, Scarlett. Small-town loyalty is charming, but it does not build empires." The phrase small-town loyalty revealed everything about her complete misreading of our business model and my personality. She saw kindness as weakness and relationship building as naivety, assuming that anyone who prioritized human connections over aggressive profit maximization must be unsophisticated and easy to manipulate. Derek nodded enthusiastically, clearly captivated by her vision of rapid expansion and corporate success. I could see how her confidence and ambition appealed to him, especially since he had always been more interested in the creative aspects of our work than the strategic planning and relationship management that I handled. "I think these ideas have real potential," I said carefully, "but we should probably run some detailed financial projections and maybe consult with our accountant before making any major changes. You know how important it is to be thorough with business decisions." Vivian's expression tightened almost imperceptibly at my suggestion of involving additional oversight. Of course, due diligence is important, but sometimes opportunities require quick action to avoid missing competitive advantages. The pressure to move fast without careful analysis was another red flag in her approach. Legitimate business improvements could withstand scrutiny and benefit from professional input, while schemes and manipulations usually required secrecy and haste to succeed. After they left for lunch together, I sat in our quiet office and felt the weight of my situation settling around me. Derek was falling for Vivian's manipulation because she was telling him everything he wanted to hear about becoming a major industry player. She had identified his deepest insecurity, that our modest success was not impressive enough, and was exploiting it perfectly. But she had also made her first major tactical error by underestimating my intelligence and preparation. While she was focused on dazzling Derek with dreams of corporate glory, I was quietly documenting every inconsistency in her proposals and every legally questionable suggestion she made. The game was officially beginning, and Vivian had no idea her opponent was already 3 moves ahead. Over the next 2 weeks, I watched Vivian's influence over Derek grow stronger, while I carefully gathered evidence of her true intentions. She had begun staying late at our office ostensibly to help with projects, but actually to access our client files and financial records. Derek gave her his login credentials without hesitation, trusting her completely and dismissing my gentle suggestions about maintaining professional boundaries as unnecessary paranoia. Every morning brought new emails from Derek about Vivian's latest brilliant insights, each one more divorced from business reality than the last. She proposed eliminating our customer service department to cut costs, suggested raising our rates by 60% across the board, and recommended dropping any client who could not commit to minimum 6-figure annual contracts. What disturbed me most was watching Derek's personality change under her influence. My brother, who had always been collaborative and thoughtful, began using corporate buzzwords and talking about optimizing human capital and leveraging scalable solutions. He started wearing expensive suits instead of his usual casual button-downs and speaking dismissively about our current clients as small potatoes, holding back our growth potential. During this time, I was conducting my own quiet investigation. I hired a private investigator named Marcus Webb, a former police detective who specialized in corporate background checks. What he discovered about Vivian's employment history was fascinating and terrifying. Her previous job at the boutique PR firm in Chicago had ended abruptly after only 8 months. According to Marcus's contacts, she had attempted to steal several major clients by convincing them to break their contracts and follow her to an independent consulting business she planned to launch. The scheme fell apart when her former employer discovered her solicitation emails and threatened legal action. Before Chicago, she had worked for a family-owned restaurant chain in Milwaukee, where she lasted exactly 1 year before being terminated for what the Human Resources Department diplomatically called strategic differences with management. Marcus's investigation revealed that she had tried to convince the owner's son to force out his parents and modernize the business according to her recommendations, creating a family crisis that nearly destroyed their relationships permanently. The pattern was unmistakable. Vivian specialized in identifying successful family businesses, targeting the younger generation with dreams of rapid expansion, and attempting to eliminate the older, more experienced partners who might question her methods. She was essentially a corporate parasite who fed on trust and family loyalty. Armed with this information, I began my counter-strategy. Instead of confronting Derek directly about Vivian's history, which would likely make him defensive and drive him closer to her, I decided to let her own behavior expose her true nature. I started by implementing subtle security measures that would document her activities without alerting her to the surveillance. Our office building's property manager was Mrs. Kim, a sharp woman in her 60s, who had always been friendly with Derek and me. When I explained that we were having concerns about unauthorized access to sensitive client information, she agreed to provide me with detailed security footage of anyone entering or leaving our office outside normal business hours. The footage revealed that Vivian had been arriving at our office at 6 in the morning twice a week, using Derek's keycard to access the building when no one else was around. She spent approximately 90 minutes each visit photographing documents with her phone, copying files to USB drives, and printing client contact lists. Her activities were methodical and professional, suggesting she had done this type of corporate espionage before. She focused primarily on our most profitable client accounts, our pricing strategies, and our proprietary marketing methodologies that Derek and I had developed over years of trial and error. I also began documenting every conversation I had with our clients, particularly their feedback about the new direction Vivian had started discussing with them during recent meetings. Mrs. Patterson called me directly after Vivian suggested that her restaurant chain needed to embrace disruption by eliminating their family recipes in favor of mass-produced alternatives that would be more cost-effective. "Scarlet honey," Mrs. Patterson said during our phone call, her voice concerned and confused. "I do not understand what this young woman is trying to accomplish. We built our business on my grandmother's recipes and personal service. Why would we want to become like every other generic chain restaurant?" Similar calls came from the Henderson family, whose retail stores had been pressured to abandon their community-focused marketing approach in favor of aggressive online advertising that would maximize reach and minimize relationship overhead. Tom Henderson was particularly frustrated. She told me that caring about individual customer relationships was an outdated business model. But those relationships are exactly why people choose our stores over the big box retailers. Each conversation confirmed that Vivian was actively sabotaging our client relationships by proposing changes that contradicted everything they valued about working with us. She was not trying to improve our business. She was deliberately damaging our reputation so she could later claim that our approach was failing and needed to be replaced entirely. The most revealing moment came during a client meeting with Anderson Tech, a software startup that had hired us to develop their brand identity. Derek brought Vivian along as his strategic consultant, and I watched her performance with new understanding of her tactics. She immediately positioned herself as the expert in the room, interrupting Derek mid-sentence to suggest that Anderson Tech needed to pivot their messaging to align with industry disruption paradigms. When the client asked for specific examples, she launched into a presentation full of marketing jargon that sounded impressive but was essentially meaningless. "What you need to understand," she told the confused startup founders, "is that traditional relationship-based marketing is becoming obsolete in the digital ecosystem. Your brand needs to embrace scalable acquisition funnels that prioritize conversion optimization over emotional connectivity." I watched Derek nodding enthusiastically at her corporate nonsense while the Anderson Tech founders exchanged puzzled glances. These were brilliant engineers who had built innovative software solutions, but they were being lectured about marketing by someone who clearly did not understand their industry or their customer base. After the meeting, Derek was euphoric about Vivian's incredible presentation, while I received a concerned email from Anderson Tech asking if we were changing our approach to working with them. They had hired us specifically because they wanted authentic relationship-focused marketing rather than the aggressive sales tactics they had experienced with larger firms. That evening, I made my decision to accelerate the timeline for exposing Vivian's true nature. Her manipulation was not only threatening my partnership with Derek, it was actively damaging our relationships with clients who trusted us. If I waited much longer, she might succeed in destroying our reputation entirely before Derek realized what was happening. I called Marcus Webb and asked him to expedite his investigation into Vivian's financial background. What he discovered was the final piece of evidence I needed. She was deeply in debt from failed business ventures and legal fees from her previous employment disputes. Her credit report showed maxed-out credit cards, a defaulted business loan, and monthly payments to several law firms. Vivian was not just manipulating Derek for access to our business. She was financially desperate and saw our company as her escape from bankruptcy. Her timeline of 6 months after the wedding was probably driven by creditor pressure rather than strategic planning. As I sat in our office that night reviewing all the evidence I had gathered, I felt a mixture of sadness for Derek and cold satisfaction about what was coming next. Vivian thought she was playing a long game, slowly isolating me and turning Derek against our business model. She had no idea that I had been watching every move she made and preparing for the perfect moment to reveal her true nature. The time had come to show her that underestimating quiet people is the most dangerous mistake ambitious predators can make. Tomorrow, I would begin the final phase of my counterattack, and Vivian would discover that karma has a way of finding people who build their lives on betraying others' trust. Derek was about to learn some painful truths about the woman he planned to marry, but sometimes the truth is the only thing that can save the people we love from their own blindness. The opportunity I had been waiting for arrived on a rainy Thursday morning, when Derek called in sick with food poisoning from their dinner date the night before. Vivian, however, still showed up at our office at her usual early hour, clearly planning to use his absence for another unsupervised document gathering session. I arrived at 7:30, 90 minutes after she had entered the building, and found her at Derek's desk with our client database open on his computer. She was photographing contract details with her phone, while a USB drive blinked in the port, copying our proprietary client management system that had taken us 2 years to develop. "Good morning, Vivian," I said pleasantly, watching her jump and quickly close the laptop screen. "Derek mentioned he was feeling unwell. I thought you might want to reschedule your planning session." Her recovery was impressively smooth. "Oh, I was just reviewing some files to prepare for our meeting later. You know how detail-oriented I am about understanding every aspect of the business." She smiled warmly while casually palming the USB drive. "Actually, this gives us a perfect opportunity to discuss some ideas I have been developing." She launched into another presentation about restructuring our operations, but this time I was recording everything on my phone, which I had positioned to capture both audio and her nervous body language. Every lie she told, every manipulation technique she used, every moment of condescension was being preserved for Derek to witness later. "I have been thinking about our conversation regarding client optimization." She continued, settling into Derek's chair with proprietorial confidence. "Some of your current accounts are really dragging down the company's growth potential. Take that Patterson woman's restaurant chain. Her refusal to modernize is holding you back from attracting serious corporate clients." I nodded thoughtfully. "Mrs. Patterson has been incredibly loyal to us. Her referrals alone have brought us 6 new accounts this year." Vivian's expression sharpened with frustration at my failure to immediately agree with her assessment. "Scarlett, you need to understand that loyalty does not pay the bills. Sentiment is not a business strategy. Derek sees the bigger picture, which is why he trusts my recommendations about streamlining operations." The phrase "streamlining operations" was corporate speak for eliminating me from the business, and we both knew it. But instead of confronting her directly, I decided to give her enough rope to hang herself completely. "You are absolutely right about thinking strategically," I agreed. "In fact, I have been researching some of the methods you suggested, and I found some interesting case studies about similar restructuring approaches." I opened my laptop and showed her the reports Marcus Webb had prepared about her previous employment disasters disguised as generic business case studies. Her face went pale as she recognized the details of her failed schemes at the Milwaukee restaurant chain and the Chicago PR firm. These companies tried to eliminate their relationship-focused approaches in favor of aggressive expansion strategies, I explained innocently. Unfortunately, the implementations were unsuccessful. The consultant involved faced legal challenges, and the businesses suffered significant reputation damage. Vivian's confident demeanor cracked visibly as she realized I was describing her own professional history. "Those situations were completely different," she said quickly. "The management in those cases was not open to necessary changes." "Of course," I agreed. "Change management is always challenging, especially when family dynamics are involved. I imagine it would be particularly difficult if the consultant had undisclosed financial motivations or previous ethical issues." Her phone buzzed with what I knew was a call from one of her creditors based on Marcus's investigation of her debt situation. She declined the call, but I had seen the panic flash across her face at the caller identification. "Vivian," I said gently, "can I ask you something as someone who cares about Derek's happiness? Are you absolutely certain that your feelings for him are not influenced by your current financial situation?" The question hit her like a physical blow. She stood abruptly, knocking over Derek's coffee mug and sending papers scattering across his desk. "How dare you suggest that my relationship with Derek is anything other than genuine? Your jealousy about his success is really becoming pathetic, Scarlett." but her voice was shaking, and her usual composure had completely disappeared. The mask was finally slipping, revealing the desperate, cornered woman underneath the polished exterior. "I am not suggesting anything," I replied calmly. "I am simply observing that someone with significant debt and a history of targeting family businesses might have complex motivations for pursuing a relationship with a successful entrepreneur." She grabbed her purse and portfolio, clearly preparing to flee. "Derek will hear about this conversation. He will not tolerate you attacking his fiancée out of petty jealousy." "Actually," I said, pulling out my phone, "I think Derek should hear this conversation. All of it." I played back her recorded comments about Mrs. Patterson, her dismissive attitude toward our clients, and most damaging of all, her admission that she had been reviewing files without Derek's knowledge. Her voice on the recording was cold and calculating, completely different from the warm, supportive tone she used when Derek was present. Vivian's face went ashen as she heard herself describing our loyal clients as obstacles to be eliminated and dismissing relationship building as sentiment rather than strategy. The recording captured her true personality perfectly, the corporate predator who had been hiding behind a facade of loving support. "You recorded me without consent," she whispered, but even she knew that was irrelevant given what the recording revealed about her intentions. "I documented a business meeting in our office," I corrected, "which is completely legal and actually recommended when discussing major strategic changes." She stared at me with undisguised hatred, finally seeing me as I really was, instead of the naive pushover she had assumed I would be. "Derek will never believe you over me. He loves me." "You are probably right about his feelings," I agreed. "But Derek also built this business with me after our parents died. He values honesty and loyalty above everything else. What do you think he will say when he learns that the woman he wants to marry has been secretly copying our client files and planning to eliminate his business partner?" For the first time since I had met her, Vivian had no immediate response. She had built her entire strategy on the assumption that Derek would choose romantic love over family loyalty, but she was about to discover that some bonds cannot be broken by manipulation and seduction. "This is not over," she said finally, her voice cold with fury. "You are absolutely right," I replied. "But it will be over very soon." After she left, I sat in the quiet office and felt the weight of what was coming next. Derek was about to have his heart broken and his trust shattered, but sometimes protecting the people we love requires inflicting short-term pain to prevent long-term destruction. The evidence was overwhelming. The recording was damning, and Vivian's own behavior had provided all the proof Derek would need to understand the truth about his fiancée's real intentions. Derek returned to the office the following morning looking pale but determined, clutching a large coffee and apologizing profusely for missing our client calls the previous day. Before he could settle at his desk, I asked if we could have a private conversation in our conference room. "Of course," he said, immediately concerned by my serious tone. "Is everything okay? Vivian mentioned you two had some kind of misunderstanding yesterday." I had spent the entire night rehearsing this moment, knowing that Derek's reaction would determine not only the fate of our business partnership, but potentially our relationship as siblings. The evidence against Vivian was overwhelming, but Derek was emotionally invested in their relationship and would not want to believe the truth about her manipulation. "Derek, I need you to listen to something, and I need you to hear it completely before we discuss what it means." I placed my phone on the conference table and started the recording from yesterday's conversation. As Vivian's voice filled the room, describing our clients as obstacles and dismissing relationship building as sentiment, I watched Derek's expression transform from confusion to disbelief to growing horror. When the recording reached her admission about reviewing files without his knowledge, he put his head in his hands. "There has to be some explanation," he said weakly when the recording ended. "Maybe she was just frustrated or having a bad day. People say things they do not mean when they are stressed." I had anticipated his denial and had prepared accordingly. I spread Marcus Webb's investigation results across the conference table like evidence in a courtroom. Vivian's employment history, her debt situation, her previous attempts to manipulate family businesses, and the security footage showing her unauthorized access to our office. "Derek, look at this pattern. Milwaukee. Chicago and now us. She targets family businesses, gains the trust of one partner, then systematically works to eliminate the other family members from the company. He studied the documents in silence, his face growing increasingly pale as he absorbed the implications. The security footage was particularly damning, showing Vivian clearly photographing documents and copying files to USB drives during her early morning visits. "The debt," he whispered, staring at her credit report. "She never mentioned any of this. She told me she had savings from her previous job and was financially stable. Derek, she owes over $80,000 to various creditors. Her business loan is in default, and she has been making payments to multiple law firms. She is not just broke, she is desperate." The final piece of evidence was a printed email Marcus had obtained through his contacts at the Chicago PR firm. It was Vivian's resignation letter, where she had written, "Family businesses are inherently inefficient because emotional attachments prevent necessary strategic decisions. Professional partnerships require eliminating personal relationships that interfere with profit optimization." Derek read the letter twice, his hands shaking slightly. She wrote this about family relationships interfering with business decisions. She was planning this entire approach before she even met me. "I am so sorry," I said quietly. "I know how much you care about her." He was quiet for several minutes, processing the enormity of his fiancée's deception. When he finally looked up, his eyes were filled with a mixture of hurt and anger that I had never seen before. "She made me feel like I was not ambitious enough," he said slowly. "Like our business was small-time and embarrassing compared to what we could achieve. She convinced me that caring about our clients was holding us back from real success." "Derek, our approach is not small-time. We built something sustainable and meaningful. We help businesses grow while maintaining their values and relationships. That is not embarrassing. That is rare and valuable." He nodded, but I could see him struggling with the realization that his judgment had been so completely compromised. She knew exactly what to say to make me feel insecure about our achievements. Every conversation we had about the business left me feeling like I was not thinking big enough or being strategic enough. That was intentional manipulation designed to make you doubt your instincts and rely on her guidance instead. Derek stood abruptly and began pacing around the conference room. "I gave her access to everything. Our client list, our financial records, our marketing strategies. What if she shares that information with competitors or uses it to start her own firm? I have been documenting her unauthorized access and taking legal precautions," I assured him. "Marcus Webb has contacts who specialize in corporate espionage cases. If she attempts to use our proprietary information, we have grounds for legal action." "I have to confront her," he said, reaching for his phone. "I need to hear her explain this directly." I caught his arm gently. "Derek, someone who has been manipulating you this systematically is not going to suddenly become honest when confronted with evidence. She will deny everything, claim the recordings are taken out of context, and probably try to convince you that I am jealous and trying to sabotage your relationship." "Then what do you suggest?" "We have a client meeting with the Morrison Group this afternoon. She was planning to attend as your strategic consultant. Let her present her recommendations to them while we record everything. Her own words and behavior will provide all the evidence you need about her true intentions." Derek agreed to the plan, though I could see the emotional toll of maintaining his facade around Vivian was already wearing on him. When she arrived at noon, perfectly dressed and radiating confidence, she greeted him with her usual affectionate enthusiasm. "Darling, I have been thinking about our conversation regarding the Henderson account," she said, settling into the chair beside Derek's desk. "I really think we need to be more aggressive about pushing them toward modernization. Sometimes you have to force clients to evolve even if they resist initially." Derek managed to respond normally, but I noticed his jaw clench when she used the word force in relation to our clients. The Morrison Group meeting proceeded exactly as I had anticipated. Vivian dominated the presentation, dismissing Derek's relationship-based approach as outdated and proposing aggressive strategies that would alienate the Morrison Group's customer base. When Mr. Morrison asked about maintaining their company's family-oriented brand identity, Vivian responded, "Emotional branding is becoming obsolete in data-driven markets. You need to focus on conversion metrics rather than sentimental attachments to traditional approaches." I watched Derek's face as he heard his fiancée reduce everything we had built together to sentimental attachments that needed to be eliminated for business success. By the end of the meeting, his transformation was complete. The man who had been manipulated into doubting our partnership was gone, replaced by someone who finally understood the true nature of the woman he had planned to marry. After the Morrison group left, Derek turned to Vivian with cold clarity in his voice. "We need to talk." The confrontation with Vivian was swift and decisive. When Derek presented her with the evidence of her deception, she initially attempted to deny everything, claiming the recordings were taken out of context, and my investigation was motivated by jealousy. But when faced with the security footage showing her unauthorized access to our office and the documentation of her previous employment disasters, her facade finally crumbled completely. "You have no idea what real business success looks like," she spat at Derek, her mask of loving support replaced by venomous contempt. "You and your precious sister are playing house with your little marketing company, while real entrepreneurs are building empires. I tried to help you grow up and think strategically, but you are too weak to make the hard decisions necessary for genuine success." Derek listened to her tirade with growing disgust, finally seeing the woman who had been manipulating him for months. Hard decisions like betraying trust and destroying relationships. Like lying to the person you claim to love, while secretly planning to eliminate his business partner and steal his client base. "Business is not about friendship and loyalty," she replied coldly. "Those are luxuries that successful people cannot afford. Your attachment to your sister and your sentimental approach to client relationships are exactly why you will never achieve anything significant." "Then I guess we have very different definitions of success," Derek said quietly. "Because what Scarlett and I have built together, the trust with our clients, the sustainability of our approach, the integrity of our methods, that is what I consider significant achievement." Vivian gathered her belongings with sharp, angry movements. "You will regret this decision when you realize what you could have accomplished with proper guidance. But I suppose mediocrity is comfortable for people who lack real ambition." After she left, Derek and I sat in our office in stunned silence, processing the magnitude of what had almost happened to our business and our relationship. The woman he had planned to marry had systematically plotted to destroy everything we had built together, using his love and trust as weapons against him. "I am so sorry, Scarlett," he said finally, his voice heavy with guilt and regret. "I almost let her convince me that caring about our clients and maintaining our partnership was somehow holding us back. I started to believe that our approach was naive and unsuccessful. Derek, she was a professional manipulator. She researched your insecurities and exploited them perfectly. The fact that you fell for her tactics does not reflect poorly on your character. It shows that you were targeted by someone who made a career of this kind of deception." Over the following weeks, we worked together to repair the damage Vivian had caused to our client relationships. Mrs. Patterson, the Henderson family, and our other longtime clients were relieved to learn that we were not abandoning our relationship-focused approach in favor of aggressive corporate strategies. Several of them mentioned feeling confused and concerned about the changes Vivian had suggested during recent meetings. "We chose to work with you because you understand that business is about people," Mrs. Patterson told us during a follow-up call. "When that young woman started talking about eliminating personal relationships and emotional connections, we wondered if you had lost sight of what made you special." The conversation reinforced how close we had come to losing everything that distinguished our company in the marketplace. Vivian's approach would not only have damaged our existing client relationships, it would have transformed us into exactly the kind of generic profit-driven firm that our clients specifically chose us to avoid. Marcus Webb's investigation also revealed that Vivian had been in contact with 2 of our competitors, apparently offering to share our proprietary client management systems. and marketing methodologies in exchange for employment opportunities. Her plan had been to use Derek's access to steal our intellectual property, then leverage that stolen information to secure a position with a larger firm that could offer her the financial stability she desperately needed. The legal implications were serious enough that Marcus recommended we consult with a corporate attorney about pursuing criminal charges for industrial espionage. However, Derek and I ultimately decided that the best revenge was simply ensuring that her scheme had failed completely, and that our business emerged stronger than ever. Within 3 months of Vivian's departure, we had not only retained all of our existing clients, but had gained 5 new accounts through referrals from businesses that appreciated our authentic relationship-based approach. The Morrison Group signed a 2-year contract after expressing relief that we had not adopted the aggressive strategies Vivian had proposed during their presentation. Derek threw himself into rebuilding his confidence and refining his understanding of what genuine success looked like. He enrolled in a business ethics course and began reading extensively about sustainable growth strategies that prioritized long-term relationships over short-term profits. I realize now that I was so focused on proving we were successful that I lost sight of why we started this business in the first place, he told me during one of our weekly planning meetings. Mom and Dad taught us that integrity and loyalty were the foundations of everything worthwhile. Vivian almost convinced me to abandon those values for the illusion of rapid growth. The experience also strengthened our partnership in unexpected ways. Derek had learned to trust my instincts about people and situations, while I had discovered my own capacity for strategic thinking and protective action when our family business was threatened. We implemented new security protocols and partnership agreements that would prevent future manipulation attempts. 6 months after the confrontation, Derek met someone new, a veterinarian named Dr. Sarah Chen, who shared his values about building meaningful relationships and contributing positively to their community. Their courtship was refreshingly honest and transparent, with Sarah taking genuine interest in our business without any agenda to change or control it. "This feels completely different," Derek confided to me after their 3rd date. "Sarah asks about our work because she is genuinely interested in what we do, not because she is looking for opportunities to exploit. She celebrates our success instead of making me feel like it is not enough." As I reflect on this entire experience, I realize that sometimes the people who claim to want to help us grow are actually trying to diminish us for their own benefit. Vivian taught me that quiet observation and careful preparation are powerful tools against manipulation, and that underestimating someone's intelligence and loyalty is often the manipulator's greatest mistake. The most important lesson, though, was that true success is not measured by aggressive expansion or maximum profit extraction. It is found in building something sustainable and meaningful with people you trust, maintaining relationships that enrich everyone involved, and staying true to the values that define who you are. Have you ever experienced family betrayal or had someone try to manipulate a relationship you cared about? How did you handle discovering that someone you trusted had ulterior motives? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one and learned so much from your experiences. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life drama about family dynamics and workplace revenge. Share this video with anyone who needs to hear that karma really does come for people who build their success on betraying others. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember that sometimes protecting the people and values you care about requires being stronger and more strategic than those who would destroy them. Life has a way of teaching us exactly who deserves our trust and who is simply using us for their own advancement.